There we have it, guys. Manchester United's next two fixtures, which were Aston Villa and Bournemouth, are finally done. Sorry that I've not been posting. I've been caught up with some work. But the results were Manchester United won at home against Aston Villa 3-1. And they unfortunately drew to Bournemouth away 2-2, with Manchester United getting robbed, completely, utterly robbed by the referee. How can you make those refereeing decisions at the highest level of refereeing? How can someone make such a mistake? And Bruno came after the game saying something, and I thought it was interesting that the ref might have not given that as a penalty because he gave a penalty prior. The first goal that Manchester United scored was, in fact, a penalty, and then the referee might have had that in his playing in his mind, and he might have not given that as a penalty. But that this should not be happening at the highest level. But 10 minutes later, Maguire gets a red card, rightfully so, in my opinion. But after you look at the replay, after you slowly look at the replay, you start to understand that the foul that Maguire made, in fact, was maybe the same as the foul that was played on Ahmad. Why was the play continued at that point of time, and why was Maguire given the red card here? That's a question that the referee needs to answer himself, and the refereeing committee needs to question as well, because these kinds of mistakes, these kinds of silly mistakes, cannot be happening at the highest level. With the way the Premier League's going right now, with the way any type of game is going right now, at end of every single game, there's always a refereeing mistake you can point to. For example, the Real Madrid and Atletico game that happened, the Madrid derby, Valverde was given a red, in my opinion, which was not a red. Right. The referee, when he submitted his report to the refereeing committee, he said that Valverde clearly was not going for the ball. That's why he was given the red. But if you slowly look at the replay, Valverde was only a few centimeters away from the ball, from getting the ball. So how does that mean that Valverde was not getting the ball? These kinds of refereeing inconsistencies that have been happening is utterly stupid. And every game we should be talking about how the players perform, how the managers laid out their tactics, but almost at the end of every single game, every single Premier League game, every single La Liga game, we're talking about refereeing mistakes. Is that what should be happening in 2026? We got advanced VAR technology, goal line technology. We got every sort of technological advancements that were needed in modern football to assess whether a thing should be a red card, a thing should be a penalty. Look, no one's ever going to agree, right? No one's ever going to say, yeah, this is 100% a penalty. There's never going to be 100% agreement from both sides. But when 95% of the people are saying that should have been a pen, you are making a mistake. You are definitely making a mistake, sir. That is what the referees need to understand. There's advanced VR technology, and no way these kinds of silly mistakes are being made in 2026. And this cannot be repeating. This cannot be done ever again. Hopefully, there's always going to be refereeing inconsistencies, right? But if it's happening so frequently, what's the use of refereeing at this point? What is the use of such referees that have the highest licenses? What is the use of that? If you can't make a decision properly, then don't be a referee. Just quit your job, man. Right? Just do your job properly. Uh, Coming aside from all of that, the main question still everyone's pondering over is whether Carrick should continue as United's manager. Look, some people might say it's a bit too early to judge. Some people might say I think he has done a very good job and should get the job next year. But I think this we have had a good good enough time frame to assess what Carrick has done. Look, what Carrick has done has certainly exceeded everyone's expectations. No one thought that Carrick was going to come in the first 10 or 11 games that he has managed Manchester United, that he was only going to lose one game. No one was ever expecting that. They thought Manchester United was going to lose against Man City. They thought United would probably lose against Arsenal, who are the title favorites, of course. No one was expecting that to happen. So what Carrick has done has certainly exceeded expectations, and he has certainly overachieved to an extent, we can say. So the question still remains: does Carrick deserve the job completely? Carrick 100% deserves the job, and from what I've assessed right so far, Carrick has a certain amount of players that he really likes in the team. And that is also helping him a lot because Manchester United are only playing a game a week, which allows him to play that same certain amount of players in that playing 11, right? So that there's no many injuries, there's not a lot of fatigues, there's not a lot of knocks as well. Because let's be real, Manchester United are only playing one game a week, and with Carrick only rating most a few players in the squad with like Bruno, Mbuemo, Ahmad, you can see that Carrick is playing the same exact 11 week in week out with not making those kinds of changes. But can Carrick do the same kind of job if he's given the facilities to the transfer window? If the likes of, let's say, Elliot Anderson, Sandro Tonali, Micheal Fernandes, like if this bunch of talent comes into Manchester United, if Bruno Guimaraes, if this bunch of talent comes into Manchester United, and now they're playing 3 games a week, can Michael Carrick handle it? Can not just Michael Carrick, can Manchester United, can the players of Manchester United handle it? Because right now, looking at the squad, I don't know if they can. Just playing one game a week, Delict, Lisandro Martinez, they've gone. They're injured. Where's Delict been? The last time I think he's played was like what, November or December. That's the last time I see him. I remember him on the pitch. So I don't know if this Manchester United squad has it in them to play 3 games week in week out. So now Carrick comes in as Manchester United manager. Is he going to be able to manage this United team 3 games a week? Because let's be for real, we're not gonna get a backup in every single position. Max, I think we can get around five players, but we can't. Pick, it's not like we have a limited amount of money. We might spend a maximum of 300 to 400 million, but is that going to be enough to bring quality in the positions that Manchester United are required to bring players in? Like we know that Manchester United need to bring 2 to 3 midfielders next season, right? An experienced one, proven but quite young, has a lot more years he can give, and maybe a prospect, right? Let's say like a Buadi, like a Manzambi, a prospect, and then they bring in a Sandro Tonali, the one, or Elliot Anderson, and then the experience when they bring Bruno Guimaraes, right? So will Manchester United be able to handle all of this? Will they be able to play everyone in the midfield that's required to play? Will Carrick be able to change the squad, just make the required changes in the lineup week in week out in Champions League nights? Because let's be for real, I think United is going to make the Champions League because this season again as well. I think there's going to be 5 Champions League spots, and I don't see United dropping below fourth even. This season, I with Aston Villa dropping in form, I don't see I don't with Liverpool, Chelsea, everyone competing to not be in the Champions League. I do not see United falling below fourth, and I think they're going to get Champions League next season, and they're not going to have the same cup form. I think they're going to have a deep cup run. But that's my question: will Michael Carrick be able to manage these big European nights? Will he be able to manage against the Enriques, the Flicks, the Arbeloas now? Arbeloa's been doing really well, right? Will he be able to do it against those lot? So that's the big question that we have for Michael Carrick, and no doubt he has done more than enough to get the Manchester United manager job. But these are the kinds of things that the board should have in their mind. Should we make the same mistake that we made against Aldi, or should we look in the market if we're getting better managers? Hear me out. If there are better managers in the market, let's say the likes of a Luis Enrique, right? Luis Enrique didn't sign a new contract with PSG yet. I mean, with PSG's performance, it seems more likely that Luis Enrique is going to sign a new contract. But if he doesn't end up signing a new contract, does Manchester United go for him instead of continuing with Carrick? We never know. But to, in my opinion, to speak from my perspective, I think Manchester United should sign Carrick as their new manager next season. Because, guys, believe it or not, we're not winning the Champions League next season. Manchester United, I don't think they're winning the Champions League max, maybe around a 16, a quarterfinals run. They're making a deep run into the Champions League. I don't think they're winning the Champions League. That's a no-brainer. And I think Manchester United should focus on the Premier League a lot next season. They should focus on the domestic competitions a lot next season, which I think Carrick will do very well. But my only problem with Carrick is his tactics against smaller teams. Look, the Mbuemo striker gimmick, which he's running right now, I think it's the thing that only works against big teams, right? The teams that play that high lines, the teams where Mbuemo can make that runs in behind, and those are the kind of games where I would believe those Liverpools, the Man Cities, the Barcelonas, where Mbema would work up front. But Sheshko needs to start. I don't know what more Sheshko has to do to start a game because he's one of the most prolific strikers in the Prem right now. On form, he averages a goal every 60 to 70 minutes. That's insane. That's better than Haaland this season. That's better than Haaland in the 2026 calendar year. That's better than Ekatike in the 2026 calendar year. Believe it or not, Sheshko is one of the most prolific strikers in the Prem right now, if not the most prolific striker. And I think Sheshko needs to start against those smaller teams. If you start Embuemo against the bigger teams, fair enough, because Sheshko still needs more experience to play against them. But Sheshko needs to start against the likes of Bournemouth, against the likes of Everton. I think Sheshko does need to start those kinds of games. And we gotta talk about Ahmad. Ahmad. You know, I rate Ahmad really highly. Not just when he was performing well under Amarin, but I actually really liked him when he was at Sunderland. I liked him when he was under Ten Hag. I always said Ahmad deserves more game time. Ahmad deserves more game time. But the way he's performing right now is not how a top player should be performing. He's trying to take on his fullback, but he's not ending up doing it. But there was a moment in that Bournemouth, I think it was around the 35th to 36th minute. There was no one for him to take on, and he had to make a run and score the goal, but he didn't. He didn't end up doing it. There's a specific picture with there being a net with no one like in front of it except the goalkeeper, of course, and then he could have made a run and scored it. And Ahmad didn't. Ahmad is not taking his chances. He's not taking on his fullback well, and I don't know, something just feels completely off about his game. And if I'm being real, against these kinds of teams, I would expect a front three of Acuna, Sheshko, and Embuemo. And I think Carrick needs to adapt every single game, right? And that's what differentiates a good manager from a great manager. A good manager, he has a philosophy. He sticks to it. No matter what, doesn't no matter if he loses, doesn't matter if he wins. Like Amram, but Amram's not a good manager, of course, but a great manager. What a great manager does is he adapts his game. He adapts his tactics according to the team he plays. He adapts his tactics according to the style of football that's going on right now. Like the likes of Pep Guardiola. But why has Pep Guardiola been the manager he has for what the past decade and a half? Because he has adapted to football as it's getting better. I mean, not only has he revolutionized football, but now he's also adapting to the game. Right now, they played the cup final against Arsenal yesterday. What did Pep do? He knew that Gabriel and Saliba on the ball, they're not the best, right? Arsenal, they're not the best team with playing the ball out from the back. So what did he decide to do? He played a 4-2-4 with the front four not pressing the center backs too much, but when the fullbacks were flying high, right? What was he doing? He was targeting those empty spaces. He was targeting those fullbacks. So what did he decide to do? He never really fully pressed Gabriel and Saliba and made Arsenal play out the back, which is one of their biggest weaknesses because Arsenal with their attack, they're one of the most non-prolific attacks in Europe right now, and that's a fact because Yorkris is not playing well, Saka is not playing well. Trossard had some moments, but he's not fully playing well. Kai Havertz, he just came back from injury and he had a stinker yesterday. So we know that Arsenal are not a good team playing out from the back. So what did Pep Guardiola decide to do? He made Gabriel and Saliba made Arsenal play out from the back more. And what did Arsenal defensive structure? He changed Arsenal defensive structure to not fully affect Mateus Nunes. And Mateus Nunes, as we noticed, he had the second most touches yesterday, which is around 95 touches, I think. And then Mateus Nunes was bombing up and down the wing. Nico Riley was like basically playing as a second striker at this point, even though he started as a fullback. So Pep Guardiola, he's the manager that he is because he adapts his tactics. He plays according to the team. That's why Pep is the serial winner, and that is what I think Carrick is lacking. Right? He's noticing that Embuemo. I rate Embuemo very highly, but in the last few weeks, he's not been the Embuemo that we know, right? And Ahmad has not been the Ahmad we know of lately because Embuemo is a winger. Let's be for real, he's not a striker. So Cunha has been amazing, one of the best players for the past few weeks. So Cunha, Sheshko, and Embuemo. Just play that for a couple of games. Let's see how that works out against the small teams. Who does United play next? I don't remember off the top of my head, but just try it out. Come on, let's just see how they do for a full 90. Let's just see it, right? Let's just see how well Sheshko is going to do, how well Mbeumo's going to do when he plays in his natural position. But yeah, I think if Carrick just adapts to the game, if he just has a bit more quality in the squad, I think Carrick is going to be such a. I think Man United is going to be a true title contender, and I do believe that next season, if Man United with the squad that they're going to build, with the likes of maybe hopefully Tonali or Gumarães or Elia Anderson or Matheus Fernandes, if that fullback for those fullback departments and that midfield being strengthened up, if Man United can make the squad, can shape the squad um, into the way that the fans wanted, the way that Michael Carrick demands, or into the way that the club would want, they're definitely competing for the Premier League title, and I think they have a strong chance of winning the Premier League next season. And that's what I think Carrick needs to do. He needs to adapt. He needs to adapt more. He needs to. Um, I just think he just needs to adapt to the game a bit more, and he just needs to start Sheshko more. What does Sheshko need to do more? He's been banging in goals. He's been prolific in front of goal, and that's what I think Carrick needs to do. I mean, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if Carrick should be the manager next season, or if United should look for another manager. But this is what I think.